Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala wa ba'd. Okay, before we begin today's lesson, are there any questions or clarifications that anyone requires? There's only two of you on the attending. So if you have any questions or any clarifications of anything we've covered in the past or anything we need clarified, then we can begin with that before we start the lesson. So. There it seems like the chat is working. Okay, I take it there are no questions. Okay, let's start the lesson. Continuing from where we left off, we were on the second chapter. So we'd covered the introduction, we covered the first chapter, now we're on the second chapter. So this is, the title of this chapter is the status of the discipline of Aqeedah, its status among all the other disciplines or sciences in Islam. So he says that many of the scholars recording, yes, everything. Okay, many of the scholars have mentioned that the science of Aqeedah, or the discipline of Aqeedah, is the best of all Islamic sciences and the highest of them, in status. And they spent a lot of time in explaining and clarifying its status and its excellence and its position. And this is the case no matter which group or which sect these scholars belong to, or which trend they're from. They all agree basically on the high status and the excellence of this knowledge. And when they say, we'll leave that, I'll mention that as we go on. I was going to mention a point, but I'm sure the Sheikh will mention it, and then I'll mention it at that point. And from those who have mentioned this high status of this knowledge, before I move on, before I carry on, I just want to check, can you hear me? Are you with me? Just put up your hand if you can hear me and you're with me. Okay, good. I thought I was maybe just talking to myself. All right, so from those who have discussed the high level and the status, the high status and the excellence of the science of Aqeedah, from the scholars of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, or from the trend of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, or from the sect of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, is Ibn Abil Izz. Ibn Abil Izz, who died in 792 Hijri. And he was a Hanafi scholar in fiqh, but he took his knowledge, took his knowledge from the Aimma of the Salaf, the Imams of the Salaf. So in the beginning of his explanation of Aqeedah al-Tahawiyya, which you can find the complete translation, and it's a good translation of it on the internet. If you just do a search for Aqeedah Tahawiyya Ibn Abil Izz PDF, you'll find it, in English it's 4 volumes. It's a very good English translation, and it covers the Aqeedah of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and refutation. Parts of it have some refutation of other ideologies and thoughts and sects and trends. But it is, he mentions the Aqeedah of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and it is a very good book to learn your Aqeedah from. So I would suggest and I would recommend that you download the PDF of Tahawiyya and you read it through and make notes for yourself. And if you do that, you will learn a lot, and you will have the Aqeedah of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, as well as some knowledge of the other trends and sects and what they said and how they were incorrect. So I highly recommend you download and read that. Aqeedah al-Tahawiyya, Sharh, the explanation of Ibn Abil Izz. So he says in the beginning of his explanation, فإنه لما كان علم أصول الدين أشرف العلوم. And indeed, due to the fact that the knowledge of the fundamentals of the religion is the most noble of all disciplines, when that is the case, because is sharaful ulum bi sharafil ma'lum, because the excellence of a discipline is based upon the excellence of what it contains or what is learned from that discipline. So, is sharaful ulum bi sharafil ma'lum, the excellence of a discipline or a field is based upon the excellence of what is learned in that field or in that discipline. And then he says, وَهُوَ الْفِقْهُ الْأَكْبَرُ بِالنِّسْبَةِ إِلَى الْفُرُوعِ. And this knowledge, the science of the discipline of Aqeedah, is known as fiqh al-akbar, the greater fiqh, in comparison to the normal fiqh, or the fiqh of the branches, or the practical fiqh. So the greater fiqh, the greater fiqh compared to the lesser fiqh is Aqeedah, is a greater fiqh compared to the practical fiqh. ولهذا سمى الإمام أبو حنيفة رحمه الله ما قاله وجمعه في أوراق من أصول الدين. And that's why Abu Hanifa rahimahullah named that which he wrote about that which he mentioned or wrote on in some papers, meaning in few papers, regarding the fundamentals of the religion, and he called it al-fiqh al-akbar. And then he says, وَحَاجَةُ الْعِبَادِ إِلَيْهِ فَوْقَ كُلِّ حَاجَةٍ وَضَرُورَتِهِمْ إِلَيْهِ فَوْقَ كُلِّ ضَرُورَةٍ. The need of the slave for this knowledge is far above every other need and every other necessity. And its necessity for them is above every other necessity. Why? Because there is no life of the heart and no bliss and no tranquility except by knowing who their Lord is, or who the one that they worship is, and who the creator of the heavens and the earth, who the creator is, who the originator is, and knowing him by his names and his attribute and his actions, which is Allah's Tawheed. And some scholars, they mention that the similarity, to bring it home to us, they compare the knowledge, this knowledge of Aqeedah for us, the need of it to us is like the need of the body for food and drink. So for our soul, for our heart, it is similar, the need of it is similar to the need of our bodies for food and drink. Because we were created to worship. We were created, our purpose in life is to worship. And we have a natural disposition, the fitrah, that we are not complete, and we are not at ease, and we are not fulfilled until we worship. Until we worship, we will always feel that hole in us, no matter how easy our life is, how much money we have, how much materials we gather together, how big a family we have and offspring we have and everything. We will, no matter how much we have of the dunya, we will always feel a hole. And that hole can only be filled with worshipping something. So we are programmed to worship something. And everyone in this dunya is a worshipper of something. Whether he worships material things, or whether he worships idols, or whether he worships his desires, or whether he worships other things, he will always worship something, because that's our natural inclination to worship. But we will only find peace in the worship of our Creator, in the worship of Allah Azza wa Jal. And that's why we are always in dire need of this knowledge, of learning about our Lord, the one that deserves worship, our originator. And this knowledge has to be more beloved to him, and is, because it's more necessary. He has the greatest need for it. It has to be the most beloved to him from everything other than it. And rushing towards it and learning it and the lessons about it brings us closer to the realization of this, and brings us closer to Allah Azza wa Jal, our Creator, and bring us closer to our purpose in this dunya, which is not the case for any other knowledge, any other science, any other discipline. It is the foundation of all the other Islamic sciences. Okay, and then he moves on. He moves on. Okay, so when we're saying that this is the most excellent and the highest level of all the Islamic sciences, what we mean by that is we're not belittling any of the other disciplines. We're not taking away from any of the other disciplines. We don't mean that every single part of the discipline of Aqeedah is better than every other part of any other Islamic discipline, any other issue or matter which is discussed in any other Islamic science. We're not saying that. We're not comparing every part with every part, but we're comparing it as a general, in general, as a whole, as a subject. It is the most excellent and the highest level in comparison as a whole with all the other Islamic disciplines. Because some may think that you're saying that the knowledge of Aqeedah is better than learning the Quran, or learning tajweed of the Quran, or reciting Quran, or learning the tafsir of Quran, or learning hadith and learning the science of hadith. No, we're not saying that. We're not saying that. We're not saying it's better than that in every from every part of that discipline. No, and we're not saying that it's better or a higher level from every angle. No, we're saying in general terms, because of what it's about and what one learns in it, in general, then it makes it the greatest and the most important and the most needed. But of course, the others have their places and their needs and their excellencies. And from other angles, perhaps other sciences, other disciplines are better from other angles. Like the Quran, studying the Quran, studying the speech of Allah. What we're learning in that is studying the speech of Allah Azza wa Jal, studying the revelation of Allah Azza wa Jal, and from that angle, that is greater. From that angle, just from that scope or that angle, it's better. So when we say greater and better and more higher level, then with that caveat of in general terms, and from the angle of what is studied in it, what we learn at the end, and that we learn about Allah Azza wa Jal. Okay, is that clear? Just put up your hand if that's clear or if you need any clarification. Okay, good. All right. Then he says, what makes this discipline, or what leads to this discipline being so great and so excellent and such of a high level compared to other disciplines? And he says it has many reasons why we say this, and we can break them down into five points, or 5 reasons. So the first is, as we mentioned, from its subject matter. So because of its subject matter, it is the most excellent and the best and the highest level, because in it, the main topic, the main matter that we discuss is about Allah Azza wa Jal, and that which is connected to him with regards concerning beliefs. And also, another major topic is about prophethood and messengership. And another major topic is about the Day of Judgment. And these matters are the fundamentals upon which all other matters are built, because this is the cornerstone of our religion. Because we can't be Muslim without these beliefs. Again, in general terms, the lay person doesn't have to know the details of these the 6 fundamentals of Iman, the 6 pillars of Iman. He doesn't need to know the details, but he needs to know in general what it means to have belief in Allah, what it means to have belief in the Prophethood, what it means to believe, and all the. In general, he needs to know them. But the details, the layperson doesn't have to have the knowledge of the details, but he has to know them in general, and he has to affirm them in general, and he has to accept them in general for him to be classified as a Muslim. And to be in the fold of Islam. Whereas he doesn't need to know, the layperson doesn't need to know the details. So when somebody becomes a Muslim, what do they need to do to become a Muslim? Okay, that's a question to you. What do they need to do to become a Muslim? To enter into the fold of Islam? What do they need to do? I'm waiting for an answer. How does somebody enter into Islam? The Shahada. Yes, he has to pronounce the Shahada. As long as he can pronounce it. Because the deaf, the mute person can't pronounce it. But he has to do something which indicates it. Okay. When somebody does the Shahada, pronounces the Shahada, and we know what the Shahada is, as Farhat mentioned, there is none worthy of worship except Allah. Because to say there is no God but Allah is not correct. As a translation, and the meaning is not correct. Think about it, Farhat. If you say there is no God but Allah, Hindus have gods, the Christians have gods, the Buddhists have taken gods, the pagans have gods, so there are gods. They're not correct gods. They're not the right gods. They're not deserving of being gods, yes, but they are considered to be gods. So there are gods other than Allah, but they're not, in reality, they're not deserving of being gods, and they're not gods because they're all creations. So, and even Quraysh, as we mentioned, they believe in Allah as the God, as the main God, as a major God, but they had other gods as well. They didn't have gods, they had other, the translation is gods, but they had other objects that they worshipped. Even though Quraysh had different beliefs, but we can say a group of them believed that these idols were not, did not create, cannot harm, cannot benefit, have no control. All they are intermediaries. They have sway over the main God, which is Allah. And if they say for Allah to do something, Allah will listen and do it. And He won't do anything until He consults them. That was one of their major beliefs amongst them. And Allah mentions it in the Quran often. مَا نَعْبُدُهُمْ إِلَّا لِيُقَرِّبُونَ إِلَى اللَّهِ زُلْفَى. We don't worship them except that they bring us closer to Allah. We don't do these actions of worship towards them except that they intercede on our behalf with Allah. This is one of their major beliefs that Allah mentions in the Quran. So this translation that Farhat you've mentioned is not the best, and is not a good translation. Rather, the Shahada is to testify that none has the right to be worshipped, or none is deserving of worship, or none is deserving of servitude but Allah and Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is His messenger. When somebody says that, what is it that he's accepting? What is that he's accepting? What is it that he's testifying to? What is it that he's affirming? Again, that's a question to you. Okay, anyone? What is it that he's affirming? There's only one true creator. But again, the mushrikeen, the Quraysh, they affirmed that. They affirmed that there is only one true creator. They affirmed Allah is the sole creator. He is the Rabb. So according to what you're saying, they were Muslims then. Abdullah says Allah has no partners. Yes, they're affirming that Allah is the only one who deserves worship. And Allah has no partners in that worship. And Allah has no partners in His Tawheed, in his oneness. He has no partners in his oneness in any part of it. And that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. And so the revelation it comes to us through the messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that the person accepts that he will take, the person affirms that he accepts everything that has come to us from Allah through his messenger, and he will act upon it in general. So in general, when somebody testifies to enter Islam, he is giving a general affirmation, acceptance, and general affirmation and acceptance that Allah alone deserves worship, and I will only worship Allah alone. And that's a general acceptance. He may not know the details of what is worship, what actions constitute worship, and what actions, if I do them, constitute shirk. He may not know those details. But to enter into Islam, he doesn't need to know those details. All he has to do is give a general acceptance and affirmation that he will not worship anyone other than Allah. And that in general terms, he will accept and affirm everything that has come to him from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and act upon it, but he may not know all the details. He may not know what has exactly all the details of what has come from the Prophet ﷺ, or what has been reported from the Messenger of Allah ﷺ. So he may fall short in knowing and acting upon what he has accepted and affirmed. And we all fall short. But he comes with this general acceptance and affirmation of the concept of worshipping Allah alone, and accepting everything that's come from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and acting upon it. Is that clear? So just repeat it back to me. What is he accepting when he's testifying? Somebody should just give me a line. What is it that he's affirming or accepting when he testifies? I'm just trying to check that you do understand the concept. Is that what I said, Abdullah? Okay, there's something missing in what you've said. There's something missing in what you said, Abdullah. That's what I'm looking for. What's missing? Again, you've Farhat, that's correct, but you've missed what? The part that I wanted. And that was to do with details and general. Detail and general. Does he need to accept everything in detail, or does he need to accept it in general terms? Details or general? He doesn't know details of worship. That's something he can learn. Good, general. He needs to accept it in general terms. We can't expect somebody, when they enter into Islam, to know all the details. But logically, it makes sense as well. What do you call it? We have textual proofs for this. The Prophet ﷺ, when he called anybody to Islam and they wanted to enter into Islam, he only required from them to say the Shahada. So there's our textual. He only required for them to say the Shahada. He didn't require for them to prove the existence of Allah or prove anything. He just required for them to testify. And so they didn't know the details until they had entered into Islam, and then the Prophet ﷺ would teach them the details. So we have this textual side, and then we have logically, when somebody enters into Islam, before he will know something which has convinced him that this is the truth, but he won't know all the details. And that he will only learn after he enters into Islam. And that's acceptable. Even logically, it's acceptable. The logic agrees with the text. That's the case. We mentioned that before. The Islamic Aqeedah is so simple that that whatever we mention, logically, if the logic, somebody's intellect is sound, it will agree with the text. And if somebody's logic doesn't agree with the text, then we don't blame the text. We blame the logic. We blame the intellect. We say there's a deficiency. There's something wrong with the intellect. Because the Sharia, the text is perfect because it's from the one who is perfect. Continuing. The second reason. So the first reason was because of the subject matter covered in the knowledge of Aqeedah makes it the best and of the highest level. The second reason, من جهة الأدلة وثاقتها. فجنس أدلة علم العقيدة هي من أقوى أدلة وأشرفها وأكثرها تنوعا. From the angle of the proofs and evidences, because in general the evidences of the discipline of Aqeedah are from the strongest of the evidences and of the highest level of the evidences. It is directly taken from the revelation and from the consensus which is based upon the revelation. Allah mentioned the Aqeedah in His book, even though it's scattered within the book, but Allah has mentioned it and not left it to anyone to explain it, but He's mentioned it, and there Allah's argumentation as well with the Quraysh have through it. Allah has mentioned the Aqeedah in the Quran and upon the tongue of His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and also the proofs and the evidences within this discipline are various and of different types, and so many. That shows that it is of the highest level and it is of the best of the Islamic sciences. The third point is from the angle of its objective and its benefit, because its objective and its benefit and its fruits are from the highest objectives, because it leads the human to knowing their Lord and their Creator, and it shows them the path through which they can reach His love. They can reach Allah's love, that Allah loves them, and they reach to them loving Allah and Allah loving them. It's when somebody becomes a perfect believer, then Allah will love them. They will automatically become a perfect believer. They will automatically love Allah, because that would lead them to becoming a perfect believer. But also it will cause for Allah's love to be bestowed upon them. Because as we know, we affirm for Allah that Allah is loved and Allah loves. Allah is loved and Allah loves. And Allah's love, we don't say it is Allah's wanting goodness for a person, but we say it is actual love. It is love. How that love is, we don't know. How that love of Allah is, we don't know. Sometimes it's manifest in this dunya by his aiding. Sometimes it's manifest by him rewarding. Sometimes it's manifest by him making things easy for someone. But this is a manifestation of his love. This is not his love. His love is one of his attributes. And because we don't know how Allah is, in the same way, we don't know how his attributes are. But we understand what it means to love. And that's why Allah affirmed love for himself. That he is loved and he loves. He is loved and he loves. That we don't know how that love is. Is that point clear, that Allah loves and he is loved? He is loved is easy. We know that. We have to love Allah. And we do love Allah. But the point about Allah's love. Abdullah, is that clear? That Allah loves, but we don't know how that love is. Okay. We can understand the manifestation of that love, but we don't know the reality of how Allah loves. But we affirm that. Good. Okay. That was the third point. The fourth point is from the angle of the level of need to this need, our need of this knowledge. As we said, it's the food of the soul. It's the food of the soul and of the heart. Just like the body cannot function without food and water. In the same way, the heart and the soul cannot function, cannot live, cannot be at ease without this food. And that's the knowledge of Allah Azza wa Jalla, the knowledge of Aqeedah. And it's also through it, it is the greatest path through which one can correct his religion, can correct his practice, can correct his foundation of his deen. So that's the fourth. The fifth is من جهة تأثيره في العلوم الأخرى, from the angle of its effect on all the other disciplines, because the discipline of Aqeedah affects all other branches, and its fundamental principles upon which it is based affects or has an effect upon matters in other sciences, in other disciplines. So it has a connection, and it affects the stance we take in Aqeedah will affect stances we take in other branches and other disciplines, and it also will affect how we understand the words of Allah and the Sunnah of His Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, how we our stances that we take in Aqeedah. For example, if our stance, if we study Aqeedah from an ideology or trend which is not from Ahl Sunnah, and we take a stance on matters of how do we understand, from where do we take our Aqeedah? That's a fundamental issue within the study of Aqeedah. From what are the sources that we take our Aqeedah from? And we make a mistake in that. That will affect how we perceive the other sources, how we understand the other sources. So, for example, if we take the stance that we take we take our Aqeedah, the source of our Aqeedah, we can only take from definite text, or we can only take from not text, definite proofs, definite evidence, then that stance would lead us not to take from the Quran. Not to take from verses of the Quran which don't have only one interpretation or only one possible meaning. But if a verse has potential meanings, more than one potential meaning, then that text is no longer, that evidence, that the verse is an evidence, is no longer a definite source. So we can't take it into Aqeedah. So we lose our respect for the text of the Quran, the text of the Sunnah. We lose our respect for it. And we will give a high respect to our intellect. And that will affect our approach in all the other sciences. And so on. Depending on our stances we take in Aqeedah, they will affect other branches of Islamic. Is that point clear as well? Good. Abdullah, is that point clear? Okay, good. All right. So these are the five points. Can you just recap for me those 5 points that make it most deserving of being the highest, the best of all sciences, and the most excellent of all Islamic disciplines? Just if you can recap them quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anyone? What was the first? What was the first? Good, because of the topics. Good, because of his topic. The second one? Second one? Proofs, evidence are strongest of evidence. Yes, good. Third one? Third one? Yes, third one. It's food for the heart. It is food for the heart, but what was the premise or the reason? Because of its love of Allah, leads to the love of Allah. But that wasn't the premise. Premise was because of its objective, the objective behind it, and the result that one achieves by its study. So because of its objective and the benefit one achieves by its study. That was number 3. So yeah, we could say importance, objective, and benefit of its study. All right, and the 5th one and the last one, the 5th one was the last one. Oh, are we on the 4th one? Yeah, that was the 3rd one, the 4th one. The 4th one, its importance. Okay, the importance is the 4th one. The need for it, the dire need we have for it. That was the 4th one. Okay, the 5th one. 5th one was That's part of the fourth one. That's part of the fourth one, anonymous attendee. I don't know who that is. Anonymous attendee, best path to correct religion. Who are you, anonymous attendee? Because I only have 2 people attending. So who's anonymous? If you just give me your name. Yes, Abdullah, it has effects. The stance we take in it has an effect upon all the other disciplines. Okay. So it has all of these points. Okay. Then he moves on to the third chapter. He says the ruling on studying science of Aqeedah and its benefits. And he says the scholars have various strands in explaining the ruling, the Shari'i ruling of learning this science. No, what he's talking about here is that the scholars have various ways of explaining how one can study the different disciplines. So they have various ways, and they explain various paths that one can take in learning this science. And one of the ways that they explain this is they differentiate between the study of the discipline of Aqeedah and the study of Aqeedah itself. And we've already mentioned that before. But the Sheikh is going to mention it again. As he said, the study, the discipline of Aqeedah is a discipline which is concerned or which specializes in the study of the state or the situation of the matters of Aqeedah. Whereas the study of Aqeedah itself, or knowledge of Aqeedah itself, is knowing those matters themselves and understanding them. So the study of Aqeedah, or knowing Aqeedah can be fulfilled, or learning Aqeedah can be fulfilled by studying the discipline of Aqeedah, whereas it can also be done by, it can also fulfilled by other paths. For example, somebody could learn Aqeedah by listening to a khutbah, by listening to a sermon, by listening to a lecture, by reading a book. And all of these paths are not studying the science of Aqeedah themselves, not going through a study of the science of Aqeedah. So Aqeedah can be learned, or the matters in Aqeedah can be learned from any of these paths. One of those paths is by studying the discipline of Aqeedah as an overview of Aqeedah. That's one path. And why is this one of the best paths to study Aqeedah? Why do you think that this is one of the best paths for the study of Aqeedah, or for learning one's Aqeedah? By studying the overview of Aqeedah. Why do you think it's one of the best parts, one of the easiest parts? Anyone? Because it gives you, because Abdullah says, because it outlines in general what the things you are going to study in Aqeedah. Yes, basically, it gives you a roadmap that you can categorize. It gives you a roadmap of your study. And so you know where you are, and it knows where you're going, and you know the path to get there. That's what this madkhal, they call it the madkhal, the key. You need the key to enter the door. The door here is Aqeedah. And the key is what will unlock it for you and show you the path to get to your objective, which is this knowing the Aqeedah. And you need that roadmap. Otherwise, you will get lost. Otherwise, you will get lost and things will become difficult upon you. So that's what makes it easier and is the easiest part. And as we mentioned before, the studying the science of Aqeedah and even studying the details of Aqeedah, then the Islamic ruling on them is that they are communal obligations. As long as some of the Ummah study these topics, these matters, then the obligation on the rest of the Ummah is removed. As for Aqeedah itself, then there are core points, which are core points of Aqeedah, that are individual obligations. We all need to know who is Allah. Who is Allah? We all need to know that only Allah deserves to be worshipped. And we need to stay away from shirk. And to stay away from shirk, we have to know what shirk is and what falls under shirk. Each one of us needs to know these matters. So some of these matters in Aqeedah, we need to know about the finality of the prophethood of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We need to, in general terms, affirm qadar. And we need to, in general terms, affirm the day of judgment and all those things that would occur in the day of judgment. Some of the details may escape us of the day of judgment, of qadar, of the prophets, of the books. Some of the details may escape us, but we have to have general knowledge of these points. At certain points, we have to know in detail to a good degree, so we don't fall into things which are disbelief. And so some of the points of Aqeedah, some of the learning of some points in Aqeedah are a individual obligation, whereas some of it are the study of it. The key is a communal obligation. The roadmap, knowing the roadmap and studying the roadmap is a communal obligation, whereas certain points of Aqeedah are an individual obligation, and some points of Aqeedah are recommended. And certain points are communal obligations. As for the benefits of studying Aqeedah, what do we mean by the benefit? What we mean by benefit is that every benefit which is connected, every benefit which comes about by this whatever it is that we're doing, by this action, by this study, by this, by whatever we're doing, is called a benefit. Because that study, that action is what leads to that. And the benefit is the objective. It is the end result. The benefit is the end result of whatever we were doing. And it is the purpose behind the action or the study and why we are doing it. That's what we mean by benefit. And there are many benefits for the study of the discipline of Aqeedah. From them is knowing the most beneficial and highest level knowledge, Islamic discipline, knowing the highest level and best of all Islamic disciplines. Because it is the study connected to Allah, His existence, His names, His attributes, His perfection, all of which He deserves, which leads to us affirming that He alone deserves to be worshipped and nothing besides Him deserves to be worshipped. Because of Him, because of His names, because of His attributes, because of His perfection, because of His actions that He does in creation and He manifests in creation. All of this shows us that He deserves to be worshipped alone and nothing with Him or other than Him. That's the first benefit. The second benefit is it helps, this study helps in regulating our way of thinking about life, about existence, about the universe. It regulates how we think and how we comprehend life, existence, and the universe. Because Islam is not just pure ritual religion, meaning a religion just about rituals that a person does in the masjid, or in his place of worship, or in his house. But rather it is a complete way of life through which one can regulate how he sees the world, how he sees everything around him, how he sees his life, how he sees existence, how he sees the universe, and how he should relate to this life, to the things around him, to the universe, and to his Lord Jalla wa Ala, and how he relates with other people. It regulates all of that. That's the second benefit. So the study of Aqeedah, the study of the science of Aqeedah, regulates how we view things, how we theorize, how we look at things. Because it's all based upon our beliefs. The third benefit is البلوغ إلى حالة الإتقان الدفاع عن إعراض الإسلام. It will lead us to be able to reach or be able to achieve a level of itqan, a high level of being able to defend Islam, defend the religion, defend the beliefs, defend our worldview. By our study, we'll learn the basis of our beliefs, the basis of our worldview, and how we can defend that, how that is correct, and that is logical, and that goes with the intellect, and so we can defend our religion. The fourth benefit, إدراك مداخل الخلل والابتداء. It allows us to be able to see, to understand the whole, or the places from which innovations may creep in, and what led to these innovations occurring in the Ummah, and what led to people opposing the Sharia. Because the one who studies this science, this discipline, he will come to know the different trends, the different statements, the different positions held by the different strands and sects he would learn the Islam, what is true, what is correct, what comes directly from the revelation, and that which opposes them, those statements, those groups, those strands, those where they were built, where those opinions were built, where they came in from, and how to deal with them. How to deal with them, with those views and opinions, as well as how to deal with those who happen to hold those views and those opinions which go against the pure Islam. Because there's not just one way of dealing with those views and opinions. And there's not just one way of dealing with people who hold those views or opinions. Different contexts, different situations require different ways of dealing. And things are not always black and white. Things are not always black and white. There's a lot of gray areas, and the study of this discipline will help us in understanding those gray areas and how to deal with those gray areas. Also, it gives us the ability to be able to regulate how our relationship or the relationship of Muslims with other than Muslims, with non-Muslims. How to relate, how it regulates our relationship with the kuffar, with our brothers, other Muslims, who may have fallen into innovation or may have acted in opposition to the text of the book and the Sunnah. How to deal with them and how to deal with their oppositions. And it teaches us the methodology of dealing with opposition and those who have fallen into opposition of the text. Because in this topic, in the study of science, we study the issue of excuse and the issue of excusing or giving excuse to somebody who has deviated because of acceptable doubts or due to ignorance or due to other than that. And we will come to these matters when we actually study Aqeedah. So what we mean by doubt is thinking, whilst he thinks that his understanding is correct. This is an acceptable ta'wil. Not meaning the ta'wil we accept, but this is an acceptable ta'wil that we can give a person excuse for. We can give a person an excuse for because he's fallen to this because of a mistake on in his understanding, whilst thinking that his understanding is the correct understanding. So how do we deal with these matters? There's room for excusing them and not applying the rule, some of the rulings upon them. Not applying, for example, even if they commit an action of kufr, commit an action of disbelief due to a ta'wil they hold. Then there's room, based upon that ta'wil, if it's a correct, acceptable ta'wil, there's room for us giving them an excuse and not applying the ruling on them, the ruling of disbelief on them, because this ta'wil prevents the application of that ruling. Is that point clear? Just put up your hands if that point's clear, if you need some clarification. Okay, good. Alhamdulillah. I think that's where we're going to stop today. Okay, we'll stop there, inshallah. Does anybody have any questions before I close the meeting? I think there is, I think all of these lectures have been recorded. Now, how you get to the recordings, I'm not too sure. Perhaps you can ask the Institute. I could upload them onto my YouTube page. I have a page, surprising. I do have a page on YouTube, which has some lessons on it. I could download these and upload them, but I don't know if the Institute would be happy with that or not. I'd have to ask, find out. If they are, I will upload them and send you the page. Okay, yes, that's true. I have, because I put one lesson on it. So you have the page. So I will try and upload today's lesson and any of the past lessons I can get into onto the YouTube page, and then you can watch them. Also, I think on my YouTube page, I plan on adding a series of lectures on Aqeedah made easy. Actually the study of Aqeedah, not what we're doing now, but the actual details of Aqeedah made easy, taken just from the Quran and the Sunnah, not much commentary. I plan on starting that, inshallah, and I'll upload them as well. So you have that study on there as well. Bismillah. Any other questions before we end the meeting? Okay. We'll stop there, inshallah. There's still more lessons to come. There's still more lessons to come. Maybe one or two more lessons, then we'll stop, inshallah. So, wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad, wallahu a'lam.